does that.
Okay.
Is it moving? Are we on?
You're on.
Okay. The numbers are moving.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so here we are at the exit in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes,
right?
Tennessee. Yeah.
And with legendary engineer and producer Phil Wolfe from Shadowlane Studios. And Phil is one of the engineers, producers, that is currently using the Dell Lastly Kohrolator for MegaTone amps. And we just thought I'd ask him to describe how he uses it a little bit and how it's working out for him.
Well, it's really designed primarily for upright bass, but I've been using it on pretty much everything except that. It beats anything else that I've ever used on electric bass. It's got punch and it's got depth and it's got tone for days. And I've also used it for mono keyboards like clavinet, and it sounds amazing on Wurlitzer piano or Farfisa organ. Anything that you want to beef up, it's just got that natural tube punch to it.
And is that why it lays in the mix, you think, better? Or?
Well, it does sit in the mix better because it just, everything takes on a weight.
Right. And you've used a whole bunch of different DIs.
No, I've used all kinds of stuff. I have, and
I know you had that.
the Ash, one of the original Ashdown.
You probably used Avalons
magnifiers
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had people bring in Avalons. I had a guy that brought in a Neve preamp and an LA2A, and as far as I'm concerned, the Kohrolator sounds as good as any of that stuff.
Yeah. And what's the reason you haven't used it with upright bass? Just haven't had a chance to use it that way yet, or just haven't been able to mess with it enough yet?
We haven't really had time to dial it in on upright because then you're at the mercy of whatever.
You don't have to keep touching my leg, Phil.
Sorry about that. So, no, I mean, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever pickup the player has.
Yeah. Well, the idea behind it was the impedance mainly for piezo type pickups on upright basses. They're such a high impedance, and they load technically they load the front end of the amp down or something, and they're thinner. And I always thought they were kind of clacky sounding, and you had to boost so much bass and work with the treble. And the idea of the Kohrolator was to have a super high impedance input, which helps that pick up the blossom and have a better low end. And from what I've been able to tell with it does just that. We were talking about the pre. You haven't really had a chance to use it for upright yet because you haven't really had a chance to dial it in, but that's something you ought to do because it works real good with it.
Well,
then again, I know a lot of players probably come in with it, especially upright players, their own conception of gear that they use on a session. And stuff.
I mean that is the case, but it's also my preference is to mic it.
Right.
Mic it first, and maybe take a direct signal.
Right. Where it really does, to me it really shines too. Also is two also. Is that double?
Is what?
When I say two also, is that incorrect or?
Not anymore.
Okay. On like electric uprights. They don't really have the body and everything. Yeah. I've got an Eminence that I use it with, and it really makes a difference on that. But so what it has a high and a low setting, and a low and a mid EQ, and then of course the tone. Which when you use it for electric bass, what is your go-to setting? Do you know?
Depends on who's playing it, and what bass they're playing.
Okay. But
if you got a guy that is really a bottom feeder, then you just set it to deep and let them dial it in. And most guys just plug into it and say, "It sounds great."
Yeah.
And I go, "No, mess with it, play with it." Yeah. No, man, it's great.
Right off the cuff.
Yeah, right off the cuff. And, and the thing is, I don't have to use as much compression or as much EQ with that as I would just running it direct through something else. And it's and it's has a lot to do with how that tube is driven and how it's biased, and and it doesn't overload you with options. You've got it's a very simple preamp.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend 30 minutes playing around with it to get a good sound.
Right.
You have a few options here and there, and that's really everything you need.
Did you use it on this last record that you just
Oh yeah,
did?
I used it
Because the bass sounds amazing on that.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, that's Phil Wolfe.
And I used it on the clavinet on there as well.
So I used it on the clavinet too. So I mean, there you go. So that's Phil Wolfe of Shadowlane Studios, and we're talking about Dale Lashley's MegaTone amp Kohrolator, which is a bass preamp that we developed mainly for upright bass, but we're finding that in the studios that it's got so many more different uses. And so check it out and go to the website, megatone.com, and all the specs and everything will be there. So thanks a lot.
Hey, Dale.